Show podcast with me, Southside Steve, and my co-host Jeff Cole, who is wearing his sexy "I'm going out tonight, please God somebody be attracted to me" shirt.
Well, it is life, liberty, and the pursuit of show business. Also, when you're single, it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of...
Yeah.
You got me?
Gotcha. For me, it's wear the father-in-law's country club shirt and look like I'm a country club guy, but I'm always ready for a game of golf. So if you're watching this podcast and you own a golf course, or maybe you have a small golf course in your backyard and you always wanted to be a pro golfer, because we're about life, liberty, and the pursuit of show business. So if you want somebody to engage you on that business, I have no problem playing with you or coming to your house to putt. People wanted that. I had a deck on the roof of my loft downtown, and I wanted to put a putt-putt golf course up there. I ended up putting seating and some low lighting and a couple plants.
It was yours. It wasn't like the buildings.
My own private roof. We all had our own private roof. And what I used was my two brothers, who are very handy. And I rented the big deal, put wood on my roof, 4 stories up on a loft downtown, and we made the deck ourselves. I'm not handy, but what we're bringing on today is a handy man. He started out, and this is truly the type of stories that we like to do. People have their day jobs. For me, it's always been broadcasting for the last 30 years. For Jeff, he has a side gig that brings in a great income, but then he is chasing the dream of making it.
In show business. That's the name, yeah.
Show business.
Yeah, so it's been, I would say I started in the early 90s.
Jeff even moved to California to try to be a comedian.
Trying to do radio.
That bombed.
Comedy here during the comedy recession.
Bombed.
There was no, auditioning for commercials and movies.
Mm-hmm. And here's the deal. Jeff's gone through not 1, but 2 marriages because wives tend to get upset when you chase dreams. Our guest coming up has also experienced that. I'm experiencing it now because my wife married me at the top, and now I've roller coastered down and I'm coming back up because I'm no longer in the corporate world. I think it's better not being in it, but this podcast is built on people that have a day gig but have a dream. Or you just said, to hell with it, I know I can do this. You're throwing spaghetti at the wall, but does it leave a stain? Or does it stick? Our next guest, it's sticking. It's stuck, and he's in a great position, but he's going to take us through the trials and tribulations. He even has a book that he wrote about it, and he has a successful company right here in the Atlanta metro that is called The Trusted Toolbox. And I got to tell you, man, the last name looks complicated. The first name really simple, Chris, but it's
Lalamia.
Not like Mamma Mia, but it's
Lalamia.
Welcome, Chris Lalamia, to the Yeah Come On Show podcast. Chris, welcome to the Yeah Come On Show podcast. I like it. You're a logo man. I'm a logo man. I got my Yeah Come On bourbon hat. And that's really how Chris and I met. Jeff, we were at a party, and Steve Beacham, who's no stranger to the podcast or our radio show, which is the Southside Ride on Fox FM. And now we've got another signal. Jeff and I are on 7 radio stations covering right now almost over half of the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. Do you realize we're over half the state of Georgia now?
Yeah, it's growing.
It's growing.
Our owner's goal is to cover the entire state of Georgia.
With a radio signal. We're looking for a big stick, but until we get the big stick, we're on a lot of sticks that are getting big. So, I almost said one of the words of the cities we're going to next, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's not out yet.
It's not out yet. I got to be quiet. But Chris, I've talked about you on the radio show that you're coming on, and I wanted to have you on my podcast. I met Chris drinking Yeah Come On bourbon whiskey at a Christmas party, and we started talking, and you handed me your business card because I asked for it. And not everybody hands out business cards, but I have them. I've got the little square thing too. And I said, the Trusted Toolbox. And I was like, that's cool. And it's red because everybody associates the red toolbox being the one with snap-on tools or whatever it is. So you're very crafty. And I'm like, well, this is neat. So I want to know more. And so obviously to our viewers, Chris has been through hell and back. So we're going to look at where it started, when you decided to go out on your own, what it cost you, how hard was it, and how successful is it now. This is the story of spaghetti being thrown at the wall and sticking. But what did you go through? So Chris, tell us the story. And also, sponsor, Yeah Come On Bourbon Whiskey, is our sponsor. This is how the two of us met. But also, it drove you to actually talk about entrepreneurial freedom and wealth, the story from the zoo to the wild. And this is available where?
On Amazon. So you can get out there on Amazon, From the Zoo to the Wild, and it talks about the crazy thing that I did, which is leave that big job.
And there it is. It says the trusted toolbox, flywheel effect, and what you did to leave the big job. So I had a big corporate job. You had a big corporate job. Jeff's got a good job right now, but it's not corporate.
But yeah, it's kind of like the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're talking about, being in the zoo and you wanted to get out in the wild on your own. Yeah, I know the story.
So a lot of people, when you're working for somebody else, and even though you're successful, did you find it when you were successful in and I'm going to say the corporate world, you weren't doing exactly what you wanted to do. You're making a living. You got the benefits, but it wasn't satisfying you.
Absolutely right. I felt like I was using half my brain, but I was making a lot of money. I mean, I had that job, 400 people working for me, corner office, parking spot, suits, had the Mercedes, making just a lot of money. But I wasn't really doing what I loved to do.
What was the business? What was the
industry?
industry?
So I have my master's in mechanical engineering, and my as everybody's path is kind of all over the board. Went into manufacturing, then I went into financial consulting for a company called Accenture now, which was Anderson Consulting at the time. I got into financial services and banking, having no experience at all, but being the process and fix-it guy. And I was working on some big stuff with Nations Bank, which is now Bank of America.
Right.
And then I came to SunTrust in Atlanta to help them get consolidated. And then they hired me on to come run an organization of their commercial loan ops. So pretty big. Yeah, right. I mean, I had it all. It looked, on the outside looking in, you're like, wow. When I actually put my notice in, I can't tell you how many people came up to me and went, wow, I didn't see that coming. I'm like, yeah.
So when you put your notice in, everything's going great. You've been doing this for, say, how many years? 15, 20?
I'm actually at 17.
17.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's gold watch status or anything, but I'm a SunTrust guy who became a Truist guy, and I love the bank and everything. That's for me who I am. But it's so funny, you see Truist Stadium and things like that. Did you get out too early? I mean, should you have stuck around for Truist?
Well, what people always ask me is those. I started in 2008, and if you know what that time was, that was the big recession. So timing was definitely not my forte. It blew. So those first 3 years, people said, "Hey man, do you miss the corporate world?" I said, "I miss getting that check every 2 weeks. I miss having somebody match up a 401k. I miss having benefits. I missed all that."
Dude,
But I definitely didn't miss the ability to get out into the wild and see if I could actually do it. You're sitting in the zoo and you're kind of going, can you do it? Can you actually start a business and make it go? Because they tell you 1 out of 10 will make it, 9 are going to fail.
I know. It's crazy odds, and that's why we do this podcast, because you're right. If you're sitting in the zoo, you're like, all right, I don't have the freedom I want. I'm technically behind bars, which is the way a lot of people feel, but I get 3 meals a day. Everything's taken care. I don't have to worry. I don't have to thrill. I don't have to kill. I just got to sit here and act happy.
That's right.
That's it. You are in a zoo, but to get out. So I love the title of this book, man. I'm looking forward to reading it. And I find that I don't like reading like books. Like my wife is in a book club and my mother-in-law, and they read these books, and some of them are just nasty. Some of them are sexual.
You like nonfiction. You don't like fiction.
Yeah.
You want real life stories.
Yeah. I want to read this and figure out how Chris did it. And then I'm like, how can I do it? Can I learn something from Chris? And that's what we're going to find out here today. So when you're doing this, you're married, you have kids?
So married, kids, country club, lifestyle, second home in the mountains, all of it.
Nice.
Kids in private school. Oh, yeah. Yeah, then I jumped out and I said...
Kids, you're going to public school.
Kids, you're going to start walking to public school. Or you're going to ride with Daddy in the big rig. And that's what we were, riding around in my marked up, trusted toolbox wrapped van. But yeah, no, I actually took the leap. But what I did is I had built a business plan.
Okay.
And I convinced my wife, I'm like, baby, just hang with me. I'm going to be a millionaire. So 17 years later, I'm happy to report I'm not a millionaire.
But happier?
I'm happier that I've started the business. Absolutely.
Well, what drove you to that? Were you always a handyman or doing projects at home and you wanted to, hey, I can make a business. I enjoy this.
Yeah.
Let's do a business.
So I put a little bit more business thought into it. But yeah, I'm very handy around the house. I grew up where all my vacations were working on people's homes, are usually our families.
Wow.
Hey, Chris, I'm from Michigan. We're going to Florida to see your grandparents. It took me 2 days to get to the beach because the first 2, we were blowing out a room for my grandfather in his condo.
Look at
So that's
that.
the kind of stuff we did.
God, see, and there's people that look at homes and like you, and I did construction for a minute right out of high school. I did heating and air installing, so I was roughing it in. So we were putting units up in the area that we are right now in Alpharetta, and I was working out of a company out of East Point. But you can look at a home and you see the studs, and you see the electrical, and you see this, and you see that. And then there's some people that don't see anything behind it. It's like, do you see the bones or do you see my skin? Or are you so shallow you only see my clothes? And what you do is, to me, a gift. When you can go in and do that, and to be a handyman, you have to almost be awesome at everything. I know there's certain things you don't want to mess with, like maybe not appliances. But when you look at a house, you're like, okay, you need to build walls. You need to remove walls. What's load bearing? What's not? Cabinets, kitchens, remodeling a basement, God knows bathrooms. Everybody wants to do it. Every home, wouldn't you say, after about 10 years, needs a little bit of love? And if a home, you buy a 20-year-old home, aesthetically from the outside it might look good, but inside everything's out of style. Or what's going bad?
Yeah. The big thing that we've seen here, especially in the Atlanta area, is that we have the heat, the humidity, and the rain. So all of that attacks the outside of the house. And a lot of people, you just said 10 years. When we look at a house after 10 years, if it hasn't had a new coat of paint on it, you haven't updated things are going to go bad. Wow. And that's where people really miss out. And that's where we have that's our number one thing is exterior wood rot repair.
Yeah, and yeah. I see some right now in my house up on the gutter and down on the corner. And I'm like, man, I just did work on the house like literally 5-6 years ago. But you're right, the heat is unbearable. And then the way where that sun shines too, man, on the house. It's certain areas you can see and the toll that it takes. And people now, and I don't know if you do this, when you go to a home, do you put that sign in the yard saying the trusted toolbox was here?
Yeah, so one of the big things that sets us apart, and that's what my business plan was, put a professional spin on a non-professional business. So the opportunity I saw was that people were doing less and less work around the house themselves. Yeah. And I said, if we come and I can put my craftsmen, my technicians, and I can put them in a logoed shirt with khaki pants and put the yard in the sign in the yard and then have a wrapped truck sitting out front of your house, they go, hey, I kind of like this service. You know, these guys make me feel at ease. I just don't have that handyman down the corner anymore or back in the day off Craigslist. I have somebody that I can trust, and he's a professional. But like you said, you can't be great at everything around the house. So I got to get my guys teed up to be the right guy at the right house at the right time.
And we're talking right now where he is at the moment. In a second, we're going to talk about where it started because that's the great story. Looking right now, how many crews do you have on the street?
So right now I have 15 handymen here in Atlanta, and I got 4 project managers running the remodeling. And then I've got 3 guys up in Athens.
Wow.
So, and then we have the office staff that supports them.
Because you're technically an I-20 North business.
Yep. So we cover all of North Metro Atlanta, which, again, if this podcast goes out everywhere, you know, if you don't know Atlanta traffic, yeah, that's a lot of fun.
That's a lot. Now, I'm not saying Chris won't take you if you live in Peachtree City or you live in Noonan. But just realize you're going to have to pay a little extra for the drive and what he's doing and his crew. And maybe they'll live with you to get it done in 5-6 days.
Yeah.
Money talks, but
yeah.
The thing is you have experts working for you. And the other thing, let's talk about your business plan, because it's almost like having you know, like you get an attorney or something like that. You're like, okay, man, you're my guy. I'm paying a retainer. It's not like a retainer, but you have a relationship where you're like, we're going to look at your house. We're going to do this today. We're going to do this next year. And we're going to have to do this in about 4 years. So it's a relationship.
Absolutely. I took the banking philosophy of, you know, the trusted toolbox. Trusted being, let us be your trusted home advisor. You know, use us, and we're going to give you the straight skinny, and you're going to decide whether or not this option works for you. And we give them options, and we work with them. That's why 40% of our business right now is repeat business.
Oh, that's good.
Which
You're
is
doing
fun.
it right. I also know you got that Trust Dale. For those of you just moving to Atlanta or haven't heard, Dale Cardwell is just a guy that he got a little side gig. He's a news guy, and he started saying, hey, man, I'm going to go in and investigate small businesses, and if they're doing it right, I'm going to give them the approval of Trust Dale. And there's the star rating, and you're a 5-star.
Yeah. Actually, we work on Dale's house, and it is interesting. His business model, I think, is, again, another great idea for a side hustle. Mm-hmm. So here he was doing the investigative reporting with Clark Howard, our local celebrity. Here we got.
I love Clark, but he's the cheapest guy in the world. I would hate to be married to Clark. I think his wife is a member of a country club, but that has to be tough. He's like, oh, what are you doing? You can reuse that straw.
Yeah, I don't think Clark's he has not hired us. No, Dale has. But Dale's idea was to find good companies out there and present them to customers or to consumers to have a good choice of somebody he's actually vetted and checked out. And let me tell you, he did. He secret shopped me. He came to my office. We got to develop a relationship over time, and so we still talk. And he's a personal friend of mine now. But yeah.
Wow.
So he's very thorough in when he investigates companies. He doesn't just hire you. He does the secret shopping thing and probably talks to referrals.
He did. Yeah, he does
It's
a good
a full
job.
investigation.
Yeah.
If you get a Trust Dale thing,
Yeah.
that's cool. And he's our local guy that does that kind of thing. So when you see it, you can trust it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been great for us because we have done so much work, because he has this other thing called the Make It Right guarantee. So he'll put up now 10 grand of his own money or of his company's money. If it's somebody that goes through him, Trust Dale, doesn't work, he'll do the 10 grand and pay to have it done right. And he's used us to come
So
in
he
and
literally puts his money where his mouth is.
He did.
Wow.
Because
I didn't
he's
know
paid
that.
us. He's paid us twice for 2 different bathrooms we've come in and fixed behind somebody else that they didn't do it right. And sure enough, he paid us the money, and he stood behind it. And he said, "Chris, I just want to make sure you give them that great customer experience." And that's all he said. He said, "I don't want cheaper price. I want your standard rates. I want you to take care of them."
Wow. When you go in, like you said, you started your kids and you're a one truck operation, and you guys see this all the time. You get behind people, you can tell, is it a magnetic sticker that they just put on their truck because it's their truck, and they don't technically want to advertise if they're going out to eat and valet in the truck or maybe going to a funeral. But, you have that on there, and some guys just do the full wrap. Some guys just paint the truck, and they're like, I don't give a damn. I'm in business 24/7. If you're behind me, I take pictures of vehicles just if I'm curious that I might need a business. So you did it that way. Now you got these crews working for you. How did you find the guys? How did you vet them? And obviously you have enough business that you're running that many crews daily.
Yeah, it's very hard to find them, number one, because if they're really good at what they do and they can talk, they really don't need me, because they could have got their own handyman gig. But a lot of these guys were sick of trying to do the 24/7 run your own handyman business. Didn't want to do the bookkeeping. Didn't want to have to give those free estimates. Didn't want to have to chase money because people hadn't paid you. So the guys now, after 17 years, my average tenure of my guy is 7 years.
Wow.
When I first started, it was more like 7 months. As I was figuring out what was going on, they were figuring out what's going on. But what we do is we continually train them. So every other Wednesday, they're in my office in Norcross, and we're training about customer service, operations, and then something technical around the house.
See, now that's awesome. And when you look at these guys, obviously you give them a feeling of independence, so they feel like, I am working for the man, but I'm not technically working for the man.
100%. In fact, I call them my wolves, and they're part of the wolf pack. And so I never start the meeting up in the front. I'm always in the back, letting everybody else talk first. And so that way, when they're out there, I tell them, you're the face of my company. You're the face of our company.
Yeah,
because
it's
nobody
yours
knows
too.
who I am. Yeah.
Yeah. See, and this is the man behind the Trusted Toolbox, which is why he's on the Yeah Come On Show podcast. Also one of our sponsors, and I want to mention it, Markwell Therapy. David Markwell. And if you go to markwelltherapy.com, this is for a lot of people that are going through stuff like the world's tough, because we're getting ready to talk about the tough part of it. Are you starting a business? Is it costing you friendships? Is it hurting your relationship? Are you bounced out of a great gig and can't find a new gig? But if you're dealing with any mental issues or you feel like you've got to talk to somebody or get counseling, markwelltherapy.com. Get a hold of David Markwell. Tell him you saw it on the Yeah Come On Show podcast. He'll take care of you, works with your insurance, and he has a location in Marietta and Blue Ridge, but he also can do it through Zoom if you're not able to drive or whatever. But make sure you talk to somebody. He gave me marriage counseling. So when he saw me on air, Southside Steve, single guy, 47, 48, 400 plus lovers, and here I am settling on one, 22 years younger, and he's like, yeah, you want some marriage counseling? So I went in with him, did it, and then we became friends, and he's been sponsoring the Yeah Come On show since its startup. And that's what I want to talk to you. When you tell your wife, I'm doing this, and you got kids. How old were your kids when you started this?
They were 6 and 9. Yeah.
God, and see, I am 4 and 7, but when I started it, I was 2 and 5,
Yeah.
and that's young. There's a lot going on, and it requires money. And a lot of times when you do what we do, the hours are crazy and the hustle's on. Tell me, this book, obviously, and again, I'm going to keep pushing it from the zoo to the wild. It's a success story because this is a successful man, but it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. It wasn't easy as you thought it would be. Now, let's have some fun talking about the struggle so people don't feel like this guy snapped his fingers and made it happen.
No, man, the struggle bus is real, brother. I'm telling you, it was very tough. I went from making a lot of money to spending a lot of money to get started. And I started in the recession. And that's why the book came about, because I kept joking. I'm like, when I'm going to write a book one day, I'm going to say, you definitely want to start your business in the recession. No, you don't. There's a lot of stuff out there that says you can, but man, it was tough. There are nights, 3:30 in the couch. I'm just on the couch, just rocking, going, "What have I just done to myself and my family?"
Right.
But
and that's tough, dude. That's emotional, and that is tough. And you're right. There's times, and you can't let anyone else see you being that weak. And it's not weak. It's just real. It's like, because everybody else, to your wife, to your friends, you got to be fearless.
You have to be fearless, and that's the hard part. Is that you wake up, or in my case, I didn't go to sleep, and I had to be at the office at 7 a.m. to start training everybody. And I had to sit there and go, today I got to solve a problem. And it is hard to go from, what the hell did I just do, to, now we're going to make this happen today.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And it's that belief in you. So when you're doing that, how has the money, what was the struggle? When did you even see profits once you started this?
Yeah, so I did build a business plan. I had mentors who read everything and told me, I had 9 out of 10. I said, can't miss. I had one guy who said, I think there might be some problems here because I've been in the business. I should have listened to him a lot more.
Yeah, always listen to the ones. That's the thing, man. If somebody's throwing, what's the word, shade or whatever, my wife is that person. My wife will hear me. I'm the dreamer. She's realistic, and she comes from that background. And my father-in-law is successful, which doesn't help.
Right. So it's tough because you get into it. I said, I'm going to break even in 18 months. 36 months later, here I come. So I was exactly double of how long it took because of the recession and what I was trying to do by establishing.
It took 3 years to break even.
Yeah. Start paying myself back. Yep. Wow. So one of the things I talk about is you got to have enough money to make it through those tough times. And I probably should have shut it down no less than 3 different times throughout the years. And it was tough. I'm talking about scraping your butt, coming right off the ground. And I took my seed money, which is all money that I had made at the bank, started putting it away. But I never touched my retirement money. That's one of the things I'm proudest of, is that right now, if I can make it to 62, I'm all right. Making it there, a little iffy.
Who knows? We may start drinking some Come On bourbon whiskey, and maybe none of us make it. No, we'll drink 3/5 and just, what happened? We got alcohol poison. Jeff survives. So Jeff, the good thing about Jeff sitting next to you is you're a 5-star rating. I'm like a 2.5. Jeff's a 1-star. Right. We're trying to make that. Yeah, 1 star.
We're talking about 1 star.
1 star. I'm
killing it on Fox FM on the Southside Ride.
Yeah, if you do listen to our radio show, he's killing. He's becoming an air personality. He's quite excited. But, you're sitting with guys that have been hustling for a long time, and you get close and you start to get around people. What's the best advice you could even give somebody? Is it about being around like others, people that are trying to make it happen, or aligning yourself with successful people? Positive thinkers? What would be your advice to somebody?
Yeah, that's a great one. There's I forget who it's attributed to, probably Jim Rohn, but you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most of the time. You definitely want to leverage up. You have your buddies who love drinking bourbon. I do.
Yeah.
But when we start talking,
that's how we met.
That is. And that's why I got the podcast. I have Alan on my show. We drink bourbon, but we talk business. And I always tell people he's the most successful failed entrepreneur I've ever met, because he failed, but he was not of his own making. It was 2008. He had a interior design and furnishing store in 2008 with a big storefront. Hard to make it, man.
Dude.
So, but
people are like, I'm trying to pay for my house. I don't need to do work in it.
No. So I would say absolutely, you want to find somebody who you want to be like and start hanging with them. And you want to be with others that are commiserating but you want to see somebody who's successful. Yeah. Because you're going to learn from them, and you want to learn from as many mistakes as you can of others. Yeah. And that's why I did the book. That's why I do the podcast, because Man, I made a lot of mistakes.
Wow. Is this book for you? And again, I keep showing it because I dig it. I dig anybody that's written a book. Is it therapeutic? Is there a chapter in here about why your wife hates you?
Don't. That's the next book probably. But yeah, absolutely. And we talked about the marriage therapy and marriage counseling. I've been through counseling for a lot of issues. So,
Markwell Therapy, if you need
there
somebody,
you go.
I'll help you. You get me a good handyman to repaint my cabinets, and I'll get you therapy.
I like it.
But
We'll figure that out.
yeah, it's not easy. My wife, it causes trouble. They say there's issues in the house, and I always told my wife on our little differences, because 2 decades difference. I don't know your age difference, but 2 different type of people that love each other. But I'm like, money problems is big problems.
Money problems are big, especially when it's in our case, right? You were making the big bucks.
You
and
were here.
They saw it, and now they see you making nothing. And the question is, I think you're worth more than that. And then you start saying, well, I think I'm worth more than that. And then here comes that self-worth, and then I'm back on the flipping couch again at 3:30 in the morning, rocking back and forth, wondering what the hell happened.
See, and that's another problem. And I'll say to anybody out there, which is why we do this podcast, the pursuit of life, liberty, and show business. Life is breathing. Life is having a purpose, and there is something to be said about being in the cage in the zoo. It's safe, but is it what you wanted for yourself on your deathbed, or when you're at the home and some chick passes you with tennis balls on a walker? You're like, did I do it right? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? The 3 of us and anybody watching that's into it, we chose to risk it. And the problem is, it does cause problems. And it can be detrimental. A lot of people will say, do it for the family. Stay in the job. It's your job as a provider. But you looked, is it good? Or did you really have a dream and you're like, it's going to work? Because it is working now.
Well, I would tell you the one thing that my 5 and 8-year-old at the time did say is that, Daddy, you look miserable. When I would come home, because I would get home at like 7 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And so that even gave me more. I wasn't being
Hell
a good
yeah.
husband and a good father then. So is it self-centered? It is, and I definitely felt like I put a lot of stress on my wife and my family doing what I did.
Sure.
And it's hard, man. I mean, its struggle is real. People don't really understand it, but when they sit there and look at you going, I don't know if we can make a bill, and I'm used to this lifestyle. And I told her, my wife, when we got married, I said, I'm going to start my business at some point in our marriage. I'm just going to do it, because at 60
So she
years
kind of
old,
knew it was coming.
she kind of knew it was coming.
Just like my wife knew I was a mess. I'm like, yeah, kind of knew.
Yeah, you kind of knew what you're signing up for, man.
Yeah.
So I always said that when I was 60 years old, I didn't want to look back and go, I wonder if I could have.
See.
That was the thing. That's the question.
Is that with
right?
you too, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying everything. I'm not giving up. I think I was going to ask you, is that part of what you would say is good advice? Is just don't give up? Because you said there were times during those 36 months that you could have just dropped the whole thing and probably gone back to the golden handcuffs.
Correct.
But no, not giving up.
You got to have the stick-to-itiveness, the fortitude. You got to be able to solve problems. Even in the show business world, you were talking about how you went out to L.A. and tried to make that happen. If you hadn't done that, don't you think 20 years from now you would have went, I wonder if.
I still kind of have a wonder if had I stayed a little bit longer, but you can't. Things are going to happen in 6 months.
Well,
so I didn't give it the time that I should have. But I wasn't happy. I was happier here in Atlanta trying to do stuff here.
Yeah.
So it worked out. But yes, if I had never done it, I would be a little more like regretful.
And the one thing that you said, Chris, that hits home with me, and maybe with you, Jeff, because Jeff's been divorced twice. Jeff, his wives are like, look, I'm leaving. At least ours have stayed, even though we hear complaints. But I will tell you what my wife says to me, and you hit it. And I don't think we've ever talked about it on the podcast. This is kind of cool. It's like, you're worth more than that. So when she sees me going out to do a gig, I'll say, for me in my business, for you, it might be you're doing some work for somebody. You don't charge what you're worth. You may charge under it due to circumstances. Maybe the individual situation. You're being a little nice, but you still like, hey, I still came in and I made $200 or $300. She goes, yeah, but you should be getting 600 to 800. And when they ask you, and then your boss, and he should be doing this, and why are you working for that? And wait, you're just getting paid 400. Tell me it's cash and not a check. Yeah, I can go off.
Yeah. You that hurts when somebody says that, because you already had that self-doubt. Hey, I think I'm worth more than this.
Of course.
And then when somebody reinforces it for you, that doesn't help, especially that one that you have to live with.
Yeah. No, so that's the thing. So that's the other deal. So, for you and what you're doing, how many years ago? So you started in what year?
2008.
So that's when I started my bar. I was forced into buying it, which I've talked about the story because my landlord went under. Bar with 1.4 was worth 600. I had to take it over. I'm paying the note on 1.4 for a bar that's worth 600 within 6 months. And I'm like, woof. Then in your industry, you're trying to help handiwork. Everybody right now, this is why I want you to call the Trusted Toolbox, because he's going to give you a fair price. The work is going to be better than the price. That's what he does. He gives you and that's anybody I like to endorse. Same thing with jewelry, or anything, or car dealer. If you exceed the price, if you over deliver, then I think you're a person somebody needs to do business with.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing. Why we've been successful and have a good brand here in Atlanta, and moving it to Athens as well, is that we do deliver on that, and we talk about that. I tell anybody who joins our company, I'm like, the guys before you have forged that path. You're going to go do a job at somebody's house we've done work for, so you better do it the way we do it. And that, communicate with them, tell them what you're going to do, ask them to look at the job after you're done. Did you exceed their expectations? That's what we do, and that's why. One of the cool things is now we're up over 1,030 Google reviews, which my closest competitor has like 200.
1,000 Google reviews, a 5-star rating on a business, which everybody talks about. You need a handyman, but we know when times are tough, people are like, you know what? I'll either A, fix it myself, B, I'll put a Band-Aid on it, or C, I'm just going to overlook it and hope there's not damage because I just don't have the money to fix it. And that was 08 for you, 09. Now your business, things are rolling. Are you happy?
I'm happy with where we're going and what's going on. I'm looking at that next, what's my next gig going to be? What's my next side hustle? So looking at that, that's why, I've got the podcast rolling. And then now I've just recently picked up a co-host gig on a radio show for home improvement.
Awesome.
So I'm doing that, and that's been a lot of fun as well. So yeah, I am having a lot of fun now.
Yeah, Jeff, what was the home improvement show that I'm thinking about? Tool Time.
Tool Time with Tim Allen and Richard Karn.
Yeah, which was awesome. So he's doing that. Do you have a hot chick that comes on and goes, hi?
No, but definitely will be interviewing anybody. Anybody's interested, please give me a call. Let me know.
All right, now tell people, because I want them to know, first off, how can they view your podcast?
Yeah, so it's called the Small Business Safari. We're trying to help people who
Small Business Safari. Once again, playing off the book in the zoo, Jeff. This is good.
Yep.
It's all there.
All coming together. Yep. So the Small Business Safari, helping people who either are trying to scale a small business or trying to start a small business. So we've had a lot of guests on over 3.5 years that have worked around and helped us with all that different. Like Ricky,
I'm going to be a guest on your show.
Hell yeah,
I'm telling you right
That's
now.
That's going to be great. I can't
and then
wait.
You can have Jeff on too. I mean, dude, we're the king of that. And I look to learn from you because you have forged a path and you've been doing it and you've succeeded.
Yeah, it feels like, that's why I said I'm an overnight success, just
the
16 years in the making.
Stuck now. It's sticking.
It was definitely spaghetti, though, man. I mean, you talked about throwing stuff against the wall. That wasn't the word I was thinking. I was thinking of another S word.
Yeah.
But yeah, we threw a lot at it. So you make a lot of mistakes, especially when you do it. And I've had people say, Chris, you don't make mistakes. You just learn. I said, yeah, but why does it cost me so much money to learn?
I know. That's a pain. And you're always like, can I just learn? So before you take a step, you're like, can I learn everything I need to know so I don't make the mistakes? But I think no matter what, you're going to make mistakes as part of the path, and you went where there was no path, and you forged one and left a trail, and you've got a successful business. And then I look, when you talk about, there's 18 people right now putting food on the table that feel a certain freedom due to what you've done.
Yeah. That actually has been, people, talk about that why. Why did you start your business? The Simon Sinek and the why. My why was, man, I want to be a millionaire. Not I wanted to have 30, I have 35 employees right now. I didn't want to make sure 35 people were out there taking care of their families. But now, yeah, it's pretty cool. And that means a lot to me. I mean, it's pretty cool.
And it should mean a lot to you. So now we know, again, the podcast name, because I've got to look it up myself.
The Small Business Safari.
Small Business Safari. I got to say it like 3 times and I memorize it. How can people follow you, or how can they get a hold of the Trusted Toolbox?
Yeah, you can always email me at chris@thetrustedtoolbox.com. I've actually got my own website, chrislalamia.com. I'm on Insta. I'm on Facebook.
Mamma mia, la mia.
Yep. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on social. And that last name is pretty unique, so there's not too many of me around.
He is a lalamina, not a mamma mia, a lalamina. But I love it. And again, Chris, it doesn't get any easier than that. Chris at thetrustedtoolbox.com. Contact this guy, especially if you're north of I-20. He'll come a-calling, and his people are qualified. and you just heard a success story. But let me tell you, I know it's not over for him or me. Like you said, you're not the millionaire sitting back. You're a guy that's hardworking, but it's working. And you're doing a great job, and your ratings are unbelievable. And that's why I wanted to have Chris on the show. So next time you need anything done at the house, not appliances, I'm talking about refurbishing anything, maintaining, having a relationship with a guy that you can call that knows that you got wood rot, but you can't handle it now, but in 5 years you will. This is the guy that has people that'll be ready to come out and get it done. Chris Lalomia, thank you for being on the Yeah Come On Show podcast.
Yeah, man, I love this. This is awesome.
Can I get a yeah come on?
Yeah, come on.